Okay. So once again, we've come to you with the truth and the truth that is backed with fact and knowledge. This is Hopes from Africa. And today, the topic we are talking about is should Africans return home? Maybe I should say it again, but with more emphasis. Should Africans living abroad return home? And with me, I have a very beautiful lady joining us. Smart, intelligence, double masters, as somebody that I respect a lot. Madam Francisca Ado. Madam Francisca, you're welcome to Host from Africa.
Thank you, Evan. It's been a while.
It's been a while. You left us and went to the US.
Hey!
And it's nice to have you,
Thank you.
especially with your vast experience across Europe and other part of living abroad. So we are going to dive straight into it. But before that, I should ask you, today is Valentine's Day. What did you do for Valentine's Day?
It's 9:50 a.m. at my ex, so it's still
Okay.
it's still early. I'm still prepared.
So you have Valentine's Day plans, eh?
Not really. I have a lot of assignments to do.
Okay. So you're going to spend your Valentine's Day doing assignments. That is PhD life. Well, so today we are talking about the topic, should Africans return home? But the whole point is somebody would ask you, what is home then? So when we say home, what do we actually mean? What does home mean to you?
I think this might be like a very simple question, but it's very in-depth and very hard to answer because home might mean a whole lot of different things to different people. And the normal circumstances, when we say home, we'll say a place where someone grew up, where you're living. So these aspects constitute part of a home. But I think as someone who has lived in like different continents, the whole idea of a home shouldn't be restricted to where you're living or where you're being brought up or where you're being nurtured. But a home could also be a place where your talents are groomed, where you become a better version of yourself, where you feel safe. If a place is not safe, you cannot call it a home. So I would say home has different aspects to it, where you're being nurtured, where it's also a safe spot for you. So I'll combine all these three things together and then call it a home. So there's no one aspect to a home. To me, it has different components altogether.
And you think that, I mean, you said that there's no one aspect. So in other words, you think that what home is for you might be different from what home is for me.
Yes, I think the whole idea of a home is very subjective. As you said, what might be a home to you might not be a home to me. You might think that, let's assume if you are in a place where it is not safe, but you might consider it a home. But to me, if the place is not safe and then it's not a place where I can be groomed to become a better version of myself, I wouldn't call it a home. But somebody with a different perspective would not consider all those things and call it a home. So, as I said, the whole idea of a home is subjective. It is up to the person's experience, exposure, and understanding of life will determine how an individual sees a home and decides to define it.
So, I mean, in other words, home could also be, in the context of Pan-Africanism or Africans, it could also be that, yeah, where I live in Europe is if it's giving me what I need, giving me all the security, that is my home.
Yes.
Okay, that is an interesting view and perspective on this. And this then leads me to the next question. In the context of what you've described as home, is leaving the African continent or leaving Africa, as in the context of we Africans living and coming to live in Europe, is it a kind of a failure of patriotism or a rational survival decision per se?
What do you mean by failure of patriotism?
Okay, so to put it this way, many of us have left, and for some of us, we came looking for opportunities and all that, right? But if you look at the history, our history, I mean, I live in the Netherlands, and we know what the Dutch did in Ghana before.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, the tribe that I come from, one of our chiefs or our king was beheaded by the Dutch when they were there. If you look at this history and you see that, knowing all this, and then I find myself in the Netherlands going after opportunity, running after opportunity, haven't I betrayed my people back home? Am I being patriotic as a Ghanaian for even coming to, in the first place, to think of it at all, to come here? Yeah, so that is my question around the failure of patriotism,
If I'm
how I explain it.
right, moving away from your home country to another spot, it's more like you are betraying your country, if I'm putting it in how you are saying it, right?
Exactly, if you look at it from that angle.
And then the other option is it a rational choice?
Is it rational survival decision?
From my perspective, you can agree, you can disagree, but
We are not here to agree on terms. We are here to make our points, yes.
there's a theory called push-pull theory. The push simply means that, let's assume I'm in Ghana and I have this interest to move to abroad to seek greener pastures. There might be some issues or um occurrences that is actually pushing me out of my home country to move to a certain country to seek for greener pastures. And then on the other hand, let's assume if I've lived in the Netherlands, so let me use Netherlands, or let me use Italy for instance, because I lived in Italy as well. So let's assume Italy, what is in Italy that is pulling me? So there is something pushing me from my home country, and then there's something from the other end or the other alternative country that I'm looking at that is pulling me. So I would say it is not issue of patriotism or betrayal, but it is more like a rational action because people do look at the cost and benefit of their actions and then do take decisions. So for instance, when I was leaving Ghana to Italy, I was going there to school. So in that circumstances, I cannot say that I am betraying my nation because I'm moving to Italy to school. I looked at the cost and benefit because at that moment, the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs was offering scholarship to come and study in their country. I looked at and then I looked at the benefit. I was like, okay, if I'm to do my master's in Ghana, what is actually the cost and what is the benefit? And if I'm to do it in Italy, what is the cost and what is the benefit? And after weighing the two, in Ghana, I was going to pay fees on my own, all the other stationaries, including any academic materials. I was going to fund it myself. But in the case of moving to Italy and also in the Netherlands respectively, the school or the government was funding it for me. So I'm a rational individual. The benefit will override the cost. So I've decided to move to Italy to pursue my master's. So I would always say that it is not issue about failure of patriotism or betraying your country, but it is an individual choice. There is the assumption that every individual is a rational being. So they are looking at the benefits over their cost. So, Evan, I would disagree with you on this one.
So you made a point about a theory of that talks push and pull. I'll come back to that because that actually touches my next question. The statement that I want to make or what I want to say. You that I know you're a very smart person.
Mm-hmm.
I can see clearly if you had stayed in Ghana, you probably would have a company and would have been employing like 50 people by now.
Okay.
Have you disappointed those people who don't have jobs now? It's a rhetorical question. Anyways, for me, the failure of patriotism does come in. And I mean, the argument you make makes a lot of sense, but the failure of patriotism does come in after we move to Europe, right? I have seen people who have come to Europe, studied for years, gotten their PhDs, and they are working as cooks in restaurants, not even chief chefs, like assistant cooks in restaurants.
Okay.
Against the idea that, like, I'm not going to go to Ghana. Like, there is nothing in Africa for me. I'm not going back. I know some Nigerians that after their PhD decided not to go back, got married, and they haven't even gotten a job, and they are doing cleaning. Somebody with a PhD, doing cleaning here. And it's not, I mean, we know there are issues back home, but the whole idea that men call back, that there's nothing in Africa for me, so I will, even if it's cleaning, that I will do with my PhD. That is where my question comes. That is where I think that failure of patriotism begins. I mean, for me, I think there's nothing wrong with coming in for the opportunities at all. But when the opportunities later blind the whole idea that you think that your home country is, for the lack of a better word, in the voice of Donald Trump, a shithole.
Okay. I get
That
that feeling. But one thing I would also want to point out to you is that before they left, there was a cycle of events that was happening that has sort of in a cognitive way affected them or affected us. So I think the issue of patriotism should be the issue of patriotism, I would say, starts from how the state treats we the citizens or how the governance system treats us the citizens. Because let's assume I'm done with university, I'm looking for a job, and then I go and somebody says, "But if you don't know anybody, you'll not be employed." And then I think even when I was doing my national service in Ghana back then, I had some of my classmates and a couple of friends, they were posted to the passport office in Ghana, I think in Kumasi or somewhere, and then there was they were like, there is no space here or there is no opportunity available here because they do not know somebody in here. So I think certain actions of the state or, okay, yes, certain actions of the state or certain, let me say, people within hierarchy of affairs have sort of affected us in a very psychological way. So when we move to abroad for greener pastures, the trauma, the experience, the whatever that has happened back home automatically doesn't leave us because now we are in a system where I would say, in a much better words or in lack of words, free and fair, where there's meritocracy. You are given opportunity based on your experience, based on your knowledge, based on a whole lot of things, not because you know somebody in a company or something. So you can say somebody has a PhD and is doing cleaning. I would argue from the perspective that certain occurrences back home has cognitively affected the individual. So I wouldn't say they are not patriotic because they don't want to go home, but there's already the assumption that with this degree that I have, there's already somebody back in the university in there who is like also fighting to be promoted or something. And then there is also this idea back in Africa that when somebody schools abroad and then come back home, we are not on the same level with that person. So he or she might want a bigger position than us. And then people there do not also want that. So it's more like you, the individual, you are fighting the system, and then the people in the system are also fighting with you. So even I would not say the people are not patriotic, but I would say the system back home doesn't really push certain people to go back home because already they've experienced it before, leave, and now they've been exposed to a whole different system together, and then they've been socialized in a different way of doing things. So if I'm to go back home with this behavior or with this renewed mindset, there are still people back home who are not also renewed in the mindset that we are having. So there will be some sort of conflict. You get it? So I would say patriotism, we are patriotic, no doubt about that. But it is the system that pushes us to determine if we want to be fully patriotic or lackadaisical about our patriotism. You get it? So
okay, so you
it is not our fault or it is not their fault, but due to certain occurrences, is making them behave in that way.
in other words, you're saying that many of us are lackadaisical patriots.
If you want to use that word,
You know, this could be my headline.
I think
Okay.
yeah, not patriot because the system to, not because we choose to.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of touched on the question I had.
Mm,
Again, my next question, which I was going to ask you, what kind of structural conditions exist in Africa that pushes us out of the continent,
mm,
right? And you've kind of touched on a few of them, the system that we are in,
mm.
fighting you, and people thinking that you are. And let me give you a story.
Okay.
When finished, I graduated from my bachelor. I mean,
Mm,
that year in my department, I was the best student. So I was working as a teaching assistant, national
yeah.
service. And then there was a new fertilizer company that
Mm,
was coming from Germany to town. And I know that now it's one of my classmates that works for that fertilizer company anyways. So they now contacted our department, the agric extension. They needed an extension guy.
okay.
And then they contacted my department, and my department recommended me. Now, when I went, I was very skinny. This guy saw me. He saw the skinny guy say, but you bet me, man. I was like, what? Just because I'm smallish, you see
Yeah.
somebody's like the competence he thinks is in the body.
Oh, yeah.
He, he,
That's
he,
your height.
he's in the height or something of that sort. And so that whole interview was very weird. I was angry,
Hmm?
but I was calm. Also, I am that person who can be calm in such situations if I want to, but I can also be very aggressive if I want to, you know. But in this situation, I was very calm. And then after the interview, I left. Then these guys, they contacted my
Your boss?
department again if they could
Yeah.
suggest another person, and the department says, we sent you our best candidate. I mean, there are other students that have graduated here. We send them to come to you, but this guy graduated as on top, you know. And within the same week that that had happened, I had gotten a scholarship to come and do my masters
In
and in Wageningen, you know. And I was actually asking myself that question. So me, my teacher self is giving me denial of jobs. How am I going to survive after school? Like anybody, like somebody with no connections, nothing, you know. How am I going to survive if my teacher is like pushing jobs away from me? Long story short, these people came back again. Then I had told them that I was going to take them 3,000 cities. So they came back again, and then they put an offer of 2,800. And I told them, oh, nah, actually, I want to take 4,500. And then they said, yes, they will take it. They will give me 4,500. I was already leaving. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. It's good to know that you've changed your mind and now you think that I'm worth that amount, but I've gotten a scholarship, so I'm leaving to the Netherlands. So I get you. I mean, this kind of structural, I don't know how to say it, whether indifferences,
Structural inequality.
inequalities, you know, are some of the things that pushes people away.
And
So
one more thing.
okay.
I think there could also be a case whereby people have not also had this issue of structural inequality, but the assumption of it would also deter them from coming. Some people might have all the necessary networks to help them and settle in fine, but the assumption that this is how the system is. When I go, how would I fit in? So yes, there is the structural inequality and also the assumption of people sort of deters them from coming back. So yeah.
You see, aside all this, I have come across a few Africans that I met here that, like, after their masters, they did not even apply for a search year.
Okay.
You know, these guys were like, no, me, I'm going back to Africa.
And do you know the reason why they decided to come back?
Well, that brings me back to maybe they're being patriotic.
Or they cover the hierarchy of affairs to help them?
It's possible. It's possible. So then, do you think that
Or they have substantial back home to fall on?
do you think that if Africans or African governments created opportunities and employment dignity or dignified employment were guaranteed in Africa, do you think Africans would come to Europe, but also even the other way around? Would we have to go back home, or do you think people will go back home?
This is an interesting question. I always say, I think I've always had this conversation that if we had like a lot of things put in place very well, many of us wouldn't have even bothered to come to Europe. Like, let's take, for instance, those that come to Europe to work without like the proper documentation and everything. If they had something substantial doing back home and then there was no form of I need to know somebody before I get things done back home. I think majority of the people will just come to Europe or to other parts of the world for vacation and then just go back home because they know that, I have something to fall on. But here's the case that for university graduates, you are done with school, there's no job. There's even there's this assertion that, somebody who completed school 10 years ago has not even gotten a job. How much more you that completed school 6 months ago? So I think if there were good jobs, good salary, more like good tenant to ensure a good life, most people would just come to Europe or to America or go to China to seek the knowledge and come back home to help because they know that structures have been put in place to cushion them or to help them become a better version and also help. But here's the situation whereby our structures are not effective and efficient enough. And there is also the assumption that when I come back home, there is nothing to cushion me or stabilize me, then there's no point of going home. So I think you're right. If we had like good policies implemented, we always have good policies implemented, but the issue is the people doing it, the people who have been placed or put in charge to do these things are not helping us because we might not be associated to them or not know them. So as she said, your stature nearly got you declined for a job. So let's assume if the manager of the company knew you and then knew your level of intellect, I'm not sure you'd have used your stature to judge you and say, oh, you're not fit for the job. So I think sometimes I would argue that we have good structures which have been put in place, but the people in charge of these structures are not helping. So I wouldn't blame policies. I wouldn't blame the kind of structures that we have. On paper, it looks good. But in reality, the people in charge of these things are not helping because they might want to help people close to them. They are ineffective. They are inefficient. Sorry for my words if it hurts, but that is the truth.
No, but I mean, for me, if you have structures and people can bypass it, then you don't have structures.
That is entirely true. But what I'm trying to say is that on paper, on paper, the plan could look very good, look very effective, very efficient. But the people going to implement those things sort of don't do it well or do it in a way that would favor them. So it is not really about I think the system is the people or the people is the system. So if people who are in charge are not patriotic enough to think about the nation, then they should just forget about it.
That is a very nice way of putting it. And I think that, I mean, yes, you are, but also on the question of if there were governance, I think recently someone made a comment which I do agree with. It says that every African living abroad wants to go back home.
Mm.
And it's the hard truth, it's the hard reality. There
Not
are a
I
few.
would say not every African, I would say majority.
Yes, okay, let's say majority. But there are even people that on the outside would tell you that, oh, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. But inwardly, if certain things were a little bit okay back home, they would want to go.
True.
The people that are saying, I don't want to go back, I don't want to go back, it is because there is something back home that is pushing them away from going back. And
Mm-hmm.
if that is taken away, they want to go back.
Yes. So I would say that's I use the word majority. And I'm going to define my majority so that you get the point I'm coming from. I would say majority says that. So if we use the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and then we are situating it in the context of those who live in abroad, some people's idea of self-actualization is getting passport or permanent resident or accumulating capital. So if we are thinking of self-actualization in this context of I've gotten the permanent residence. I've gotten a new passport. I've gotten enough capital because some people come with different motives. You get it. I've gotten the P. That is self-actualization. And then they feel like, oh, if I've gotten all these resources and I can go back home to do something because they have substantial resource. But somebody like myself, I'm now in school trying to get the PhD. I have not accumulated enough resources. So I would say that I've not gotten to my self-actualization stage for me to be thinking that I want to go back home because there's a lot of things for me to achieve at this young age. But I would say majority in the context that people who have accumulated enough resources to go back to set up businesses, they feel like, oh, they have given birth to their children. Yeah, now their kids are grown. So there is no sort of responsibility on their part to take care of their kid. Because I know in Europe, when you give birth to a child, there's no way you would want to leave the child and say, I'm going to relocate to Ghana because the social services will come after you. But if they have kids who are grown, now they think like, I've gotten to the age where I don't need to stress myself, then they'll be willing to go back home. That is the context for one part of the demography. And if you are looking at capital, some people also came to abroad that, oh, they want to accumulate capital and go back home to set up businesses. So if they have accumulated enough, then they also have the feeling, let me use the word feeling to go back home. For somebody like me, I have not accumulated capital. And that is not my motive because that's not what I came here for. My motive here is to study the degree and then do whatever that follows up next. And if I've not gotten my PhD yet, what will push me to go back home? Because what brought me to this country, I have not achieved it yet. So I would say for most people who have achieved whatever that they wanted, or have gotten to the self-actualization stage of their abroad life, would want to go home. So that's why I use the context of majority or most, but not everybody. Yes.
Yes. We are having really very nice conversation, but we have a lot more to talk about. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to do a little bit of switch, and we are going to still talk about a very important topic, which is which parts of diaspora life. I want to ask that question are rarely talked about or discussed openly.
This question, I think it might have to go to like, this question is like personal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a very vulnerable question,
Yes.
but it is the reality of people living outside. And I think that it is time to talk about some of these things because we don't openly, I think we are not being honest, especially those on social media. We are not being honest to our colleagues back home.
It's not like we are not being honest. It's what the people want is what we are showing them.
No, we are being partially, like we are just being partially honest.
Okay.
You know, we are telling selective truths.
Okay, put it that way.
You know, so what are the part of this diaspora life that is really you think is really discussed?
Say issues of money and issues of employment. There's a whole lot, but I'll look at these two things. So before I left Ghana to move to Italy to go and study for my master's, I think as a child and a teenager, whenever you talked about abroad, I always saw it very rosy because there was always this thing that it's or let me say it in English. When you come to abroad, you get a lot of money because you are paid hourly, you are paid weekly. But what they don't tell you is that let's assume if they pay you weekly or at the end of the month, you get all the money. Some will go into taxes.
21%.
After the taxes aspect, we pay our rents monthly. You have rent, and if your rent is not all inclusive, you pay utility bills. There's grocery, there is transportation. In the Netherlands, transportation is very, very
Crazy.
expensive. So I think is more like we have been socialized from the older generation to the new generation, because I think the older generation that came to abroad made it look like, oh, immediately that you come, you get a job, you get money, and how should I put it, the value of the CD to the dollar or to the euro. Oh, one CD, $1 is 10 CDs, or one euro is 13 CDs. So there's this pre-assumption that, oh, if somebody is taking 1,000 euros a month for salary in the Netherlands, when it comes to Ghana, is approximately 13,000 Ghana cedis. Oh, that's a lot of money.
Hey,
But
13,000 was
but people don't get to understand that when in Ghana they are paying the 2-year advance rent, we are paying monthly rent. So let's assume if I was working in the Netherlands, this is an assumption, that wasn't my real salary though. Let's assume if I was taking 1,000 euros every month, my rent is like 600 euros, meaning I'm left with 400 euros. How much am I going to save? How much am I going to use for groceries? I might want to travel. I might want to do something for myself. How much am I going to put aside for that? And then, fortunately for me, I have parents that don't ask for anything because they're a bit well to do, so they can take care of themselves. And if it's a birthday or something and then I want to send them something, then that's fine. So there's that assumption that immediately you move to abroad, it's all rosy, because I wouldn't say a lie, but some sort of socialization has been done from the older generation that came to abroad in the 90s or the 1980s to this new generation. So that is one thing. And then the issue of employment. And they're like, oh, if you're in abroad, immediately you're done with school, you get a job. But Evan, you and I know that's not always, for some people, they are fortunate enough that, especially for those in IT, engineering, yes, there's 80% chances of them getting a job right after school. But for those of us in the social sciences, even if you are going to get a job, there's the issue of language. You have the qualification, but you can't speak the language. So I think that these assumptions over the years have sort of clouded our judgments about abroad. and it has been trickled down to every generation that is coming. And it's not going to stop now because social media is there. People will see the rosy parts, but they don't get to see the hard part of it. Because I remember one time I was going to work and it was raining and I delayed a little bit and then the immediately I got to the bus stop. That's when the bus was leaving and then I was trying to flag down the bus driver and he didn't stop. I stood in the rain and cried. But there's no way I can come and put this on social media because people would think she's overreacting. Hey, what's your virtue? Who's my day? Yeah, you want to cry your whole tree. Oh, well, reach a month to be a week, be a OG salary. See, so I think because of the perception people have about people living abroad back home, it doesn't really push a lot of people to share their hardship. And then you know how in our society people tend to use whatever that we share against us. So let's assume if I come and share that, oh, I am working in a supermarket, I am working in a restaurant, I am doing cleaning. So it's a legal job. It's giving you a pay, all right. But because back home these jobs are not glorified, if you have to put it back there, some people write, oh, see, school baby now you get it. So I think it's the fear of societal backlash. It's not making people share the realities that they see, or some people feel like when you're telling them the truth, you don't want them to come. I recently met this person, and then before I left the Netherlands, and then the person was asking me how was it like, because he was asking me about back in Italy where I was staying, and then I was trying to tell the individual, well, this was how it was. If you can't really speak the language, you know, in Netherlands, 90% of the population speaks English, so it's not a
Yeah.
problem. But in the case of Italy, some people can speak English, but because there is this national identity of the individual being Italian, the person will say, oh, mi dispiace, non parlo inglese, solo italiano. So even if the person can speak English, because there is this attachment to their nation, they will tell you, I can't speak English, only Italian. So if you can't speak the Italian language, it's very hard for you to get a job. And I was trying to tell the person about all this part of, aside from the rosy aspects, the the hardship as well. And then the person made a comment that, oh, I don't percent of the Diana, or oh, you don't want me to come.
God.
So you see, I think so when you're telling people that, they feel like there's also the assumption that you are trying to deter them for them to also be exposed to the rosy life. So these are some of the things over assumption, the perception that you don't want them to come. So most people would also show the rosy aspect, or as you put it, the partial truth. And then when you come, you get to experience whatever that you experience on your own.
I mean, you had made a point that people wouldn't want to talk about it, but here we are talking about it, right? I think that there is a new kind of generation that is willing and ready to talk about these things. And I mean, as usual, every good message or truthful message, it doesn't catch the attention of people. When it catches, the reaction is you expect some kind of counter reaction, right? I also have very good friends like bankers back home. Like I have a banker friend doing the masters, and this is a very good friend that I like. You know, he's been wanting to travel. Like he's a very good friend of mine. So I encouraged him that you are better off when you at least come in, because the bachelor was not that, so just finish the masters. He's almost done, but I don't know, all of a sudden he has this, no, I want to go, kind of thing. And you don't even know, like, you don't even know what to say again, because like you were saying, if you say it, it's like you don't want him to come and experience the life that's the juicy life that you are experiencing, that the so-called juicy life that you are experiencing. But here we are, we will speak our truths, and then yeah. One other aspect for me, it's a little bit of also the social life,
Yeah.
especially if you're in student community and you make friends. They don't stick together. You guys separate in just some few times. For some of us who are not married, for some of us who are single, it's also a very difficult one. People don't talk about this, but I feel like this is a very open kind of conversation. Like,
I think when you know how now in our age we don't really care about, how do you call it, relationships anymore. Not relationship as in boy and girl relationship, but the overall friendship and everything. One thing that really helped me when I moved to Italy and Netherlands was that I would say I had a tribe I could fall on. I had people that were there to back me. Yourself, Oscar, Dickness Rose, our church, and a whole lot of people I knew back in Italy. And you know, it can be very depressing. It can be very lonely. It can be very sad. So
Very depressing.
even if you don't want to socialize, which I do understand some people because they feel like oh being your boy and you don't want to socialize, I would advise you to socialize because it helps you. It sort of gives you this refreshing mind because in case of anything, you get somebody to fall on. So I would say that have and then I would say my parents have been very helpful because the time that I was in Netherlands, when I was looking for a job, my mother told me that if I think I cannot find a job, nobody has asked me to stay in abroad. I can come back home and come and work with her, which sounded very good. But in my mind, I was like, hey, what are people going to say? Because could you believe that when in 2024, I went to Ghana to visit my parents and I had stayed for like 2 or 3 months and people started asking me, hey, when are you going?
What
See
are you
myself.
doing here?
So I was asking myself, but this is my country. This is my home country. Can't I come home and then spend any amount of time that I want? So when my mother said that since you are looking for a job, like I was doing the search here. If you're not finding a job, just come back home. There are plenty of rooms. There is plenty of food. Come and work with me. It sounded very nice. It sounded very good. But as an individual with this societal expectation of you going, and fortunately for me, my parents were not giving me pressure. Like, you know how some people back home, their parents will be giving them pressure. Oh, send us money, send us this. No. So I would say that fortunately I had like supportive parents. 2, I had you guys. You were superb or you've been superb. 3, for those of you unapologetic about my faith, the church has been supportive. So whichever religion that you are in, that is up to you. But for me, I'm a Christian. So yes, I would say the Church of Pentecost, Arnhem, and then Matarata Assembly has been very supportive. So to me, abroad can be very lonely, very depressing. Find a tribe, find a group, find people who are like-minded, just like yourself, and associate yourself with because it will be beneficial. You
Thank
can never.
you.
It's never a one-man world. That
Yes,
you
yes,
need.
yes, yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. This conversation is actually getting more interesting and interesting as we go
Mm-hmm.
ahead. We are 47 minutes into it, so almost 15 minutes.
Mm.
So I want to say thank you. I would wish to continue this, but I want to end this session here since I'm hosting you on another session again.
Okay.
I want to say thank you for taking the time to be with us
You're
on
welcome.
this one. On behalf of my listeners, we want to say thank you for sharing your truth and the whole truth on Hopes from Africa. This
Selective.
is the hub for knowledge. And we here on Hope from Africa, we have taken sides.
Mm,
We are not neutral, but we've taken the side of the truth. So we stand with the truth.
mm.
So we say thank you for being here.